I think as an engineer, it's never enough if there's waste in the system. When you start studying houses or buildings, you look for where's the waste. So we created a multi-trillion-dollar economy. Now the green is coming into the equation. We're turning the ship. And the numbers are bad. The system is not working. We took a right turn when we needed to go left as a civilization. Why is Earth not home? This isn't the end game. We need to go deeper and ask why, to go from human to humane.
That is David Gottfried, founder of the US and World Green Building Council, Stanford-trained engineer, father of the LEED certification system, and four-time author. David has created widespread impact and adoption of sustainable building practices through his holistic approach to reducing waste in the built environment. An engineer by training, he has spent 4 decades building the systems and institutions behind the global green building movement. Now with his new company, Regen360, he is on a mission to create systemic change in our mindsets and rewire the way we live, build, lead, and measure wealth of our civilization. My name is Peter Marcus Bach, and this is the Grand Challenges Podcast, a show about inspiring individuals who are stepping up to tackle the global challenges that our world is facing in their own unique ways. We reflect on the many out-of-the-box ways our guests have navigated the complexity and intricacies of our environment at the cutting edges of science, engineering, technology, and design. On today's show, David and I revisit the origins of the green building movement and LEED certification system, from humble beginnings to global scaling. We hear David's insights into why it is not enough and what major systemic change needs to take place if we want to create a sustainable future. A shift from human to humane and a new operating system to sustain life of our civilization on planet Earth. Visit tgcpodcast.show for detailed information and show notes on this episode. Thank you for joining us today, and please enjoy the show. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Peter. Great to be here with you. Looking forward to a great conversation.
Likewise, I'm very excited to have you on the show, and you've done so many amazing things and you've really made some huge impact in the world. And I guess hearing your side of the journey is going to be very interesting. But of course, we will save that for later in anticipation and instead focus on something else that I thought was quite funny that you like to engage in, because I have some experience, and that is none other than Kung Fu. So what's your story with Kung Fu?
Tell me your experience first. I want to hear you play your cards in the ring.
Nah. I did Kung Fu when I was a kid alongside Taekwondo. So at some point I was doing both martial arts. I don't know, because I always felt that there was some beauty to Kung Fu in the way you move. And I mean, growing up in Singapore, I think at the same time I was learning Kung Fu, there was also a Chinese TV show about one of the famous Kung Fu artists. I think his name was Wong Fei Hong, or can't remember. Yeah. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Yeah.
So I've played my cards. What about you?
Yeah, I every time I drove by for years, martial arts classes, especially at a red light, I'd look in the windows to see what I could see, and mostly kids moving around, sometimes hitting a bag, and always wanted to do it, like the early martial arts films. I tried a little bit in high school, and it didn't stick. I stayed in my white belt. And then I tried again with Shotokan at university, and it didn't stick. And then in my late 50s, I finally had a little time, looked up the best ratings in my area, and it said this one Kung Fu school called East West. And they had 4 schools, great ratings, signed up for $100 for free, 4 lessons.
Bargain.
And loved it. And that was 5 years ago. And they've kind of hooked me. I'm going 5-6 days a week. I'm in the trainee program. Average age is 15 years old. So it's the youngest is 12. And then I'm at the other end as the bookend. And we go every Monday night. We went last night for 2 hours. And they teach us how to help instructors. And you're on the slow path to becoming an instructor. But it's really cool. You don't just learn it, you learn how to teach. And a lot of it's these little kids, and there's a lot of ADHD going on.
Oh, really? But I guess it's also, I don't know, there's something fascinating about seeing Kung Fu artists perform and, the actual fights themselves. I mean, as a kid, I certainly quit while I was ahead. I think what I really wanted to do was to, palm a candle off. So, you push your palm towards a flame on a candle and the flame goes out. And I think once I learned that, I started losing interest and decided to just stop. And
no, but you're right about Kung Fu. There's a art and a beauty to it. It's also great self-defense, balance, exercise. And more than anything, you learn humility because most things I've done in life and a lot of sports, if I work super hard, it's linear. I always progress. In Kung Fu, sometimes the harder I work, I flatline and I need to relax. And sometimes when you want to work harder, the cortisol goes and your shoulders go up and you get tense. And so I've had to learn about the word somatic, getting inside my body and relaxing and breathing and learning it's not about the next belt or the stripe or the win. It's about entering the mat with the right presence, breathing, enjoying the whole art of it and the process, not the goal.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, often these are journeys inward because I guess they teach you the mindfulness to be present. They teach you to, I guess, understand your body, and somatic experience, as you said, is what helps change and release things that are stored inside your body as well.
Yeah, there's a lot in mine. But the other thing I've been shocked at, and it shows up in my new book, is just the level of professionalism and how much they care at this school, the instructors, and the level they go. And it's really taught me not just about a 1,000-year-old system, but professionalism and care. Just they care about every kid and they call them by their last name. And I visited the white pole and I hold it and they watch my foot kick out, whether it flops, for 20 minutes. And I've done it 5-7 times over the years. And even a 7-time world champion will watch my foot for 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
It's astounding the care that they don't want it to flex because you won't have the impact or you'll break your foot when you kick.
I mean, I know this from, watching some Japanese martial arts or even kendo. Like you swing a sword 1,000 times, you do it enough times, you have the muscle memory, but it's also the discipline to do it in the first place, which I think we're losing more and more in our day to day.
Well, and that's a big point is it teaches you discipline and that under tension when you're in the sparring ring, does all your practice get thrown out because you didn't do it enough and you didn't create muscle memory? So you always default to your level of muscle memory and practice. So if you didn't put in the time under stress, everything's gone.
Yeah, that's true. And I suppose the other hobby that you have that you really like, which also trains, I guess, discipline, patience, is fly fishing.
Yeah, another sport that stuck. And I learned with my father and brothers in college. Dad flew us all out to Montana, outfitted us with the waders and the boots and the rod, hired this legendary fly fisherman guy known for Montana. And for 5 days, we rented 2 cabins, one for him, one for us, right on the Madison River in Montana. And
that sounds amazing.
He was old school. Day 1 was casting on the grass. Not fishing. Day 2 is knot tying and wading in the river and respecting the river. And finally, day 3, we got to go in the waters. But that was 45 years ago, and I'm still doing it on my own, mostly in creeks. I need a wading staff where you fall on the slick boulders, and I can become a kid again and hunt for trout. And I let them go after I catch them, but just enough for them to spark my soul.
But it's, I guess, these hobbies that you build through lived experiences and beautiful experiences from when you were young, they stick with you for life. And also the curiosities to go further and deeper as well.
For sure. And another sport or effort that draws you outside of self, outside of your mind. And in fly fishing into nature, it's more about nature and wildlife and getting off your cell phone and breathing, a lot of breathing.
No, that's very true. And so I guess hobbies aside, you've had an incredible journey so far and created real change. So, you're regarded as the father of the global green building movement. And I think, people will always hear this, green buildings, green building councils, the LEED system. But sometimes, even though we hear it, we know it, and it's gained quite a lot of foothold in how we approach sustainability in the built environment. I mean, sometimes we don't know so much about it. So maybe from the words of the father itself, give us a quick 101 on what this whole system is.
Yeah, well, thank you. I fell in love with buildings in college. I studied solar energy. And we had a project where you had to design a solar system on a house and design it to net zero and build a little balsa wood model. And that changed me for life and woke me up that there's a sun. The sun can heat buildings. We can also use the sun for photovoltaics to generate electricity. Seems like our cats always know where the sun is. They're on the hot hood of the car. Yeah. And even my dog does that, looking for the daylight. But green building, and I'm an engineer, so we hate waste. But when you start studying houses or buildings, you look for where's the waste in the system. And the green building tightens it up, gets rid of it. So it's energy efficient. And that starts with the envelope of the house or the building, with the orientation to the sun, even the wind, with the walls and the insulation, where you put your glazing, how much, is it double or triple glazed? You get it tight. Your roof, even if it's a dark roof, isn't so great because it gets the heat gain of the sun and causes you to need more cooling. So you get the whole envelope right, the orientation, even the thermal mass for passive solar design. And then once that's happening with ample daylight, which is very important, you can look at systems, air conditioning and heating, but you'll need less because it's a tighter box, it's insulated well, and lets the daylight in, so less lighting. Good shading also is part of the envelope. So in the hot summer days, it lets in less sun. In the winter, it lets in more. So you get efficient mechanical systems. Heat pumps now are super efficient. Lighting systems, LEDs, lighting sensors for occupancy, water efficiency into your showers, your faucets, your toilets. Even your dishwashers, your washer dryers could be energy efficient. Acoustically, everything could be quiet. Water is very important. You get into water capture, your tub or your sink. That's called gray water. You could filter it, use it for the landscaping. You can even do black water, your toilets, and do composting and make beautiful soil that can be used in the garden. You can do rainwater capture and feed a toilet or your landscaping. Recycle lean and recycled materials. So your carpet, your glass tiles could have old glass in it. Your carpet could have recycled content. At the end of its first life, you could recycle it for another life. You could have different materials. I did a home once and got old redwood from the old Sacramento Main Bridge, and that was our front stairs to the home. I remember we were milling it and found bullets in it because people would shoot their bullets underneath the bridge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then it should be healthy. And we're getting much better in terms of product standards on health, but the old carpet used to off-gas the glues and all the other stuff in it. Like carpets had biocides and fungicides, even paints.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, they wanted it for shelf life of the paint. But those are preservatives that off-gas and can make you sick. And so it needs to be healthy. And even your cleaning products, if you have a cleaning company and they come, watch all the ammonia and other stuff they put. I look at every label, or better yet, I buy the stuff and just hand it to them. So health is very important for the people living there or working there.
I mean, it's really that holistic approach to how we design a building. In fact, I mean, you can apply it to building, neighborhoods, entire cities as well. But it's considering that cycle of whether it's water, energy, waste, so that we can create comfortable environments for the people there.
Yeah, and it's about health of the people and health of the planet.
Mm.
And you're not comfortable if you can't breathe or it's dark. It hurts your circadian rhythm and your hormones.
Yeah.
And in terms of the neighborhood, it definitely brings in that heat gain. Like if you look at Phoenix or Los Angeles in the summer, they're hot, but those black asphalts and the black roofs are radiating out heat. And it's about a 10-degree impact. And smog could be related. But even the refrigerants and the ozone depleting factors are part of this, and global warming contributions. So that's part of the health of the planet.
No, definitely. And ultimately, it is really helping the planet because you're trying to, at the same time, decarbonize the environment, reducing the emissions, which can basically come from any kind of source, given the processes we would do in a, call it business as usual, non-sustainable way.
Yeah, for sure. And burning fuel, whether it was coal or oils, petroleum, natural gas, when you burn it, it sends out CO2 or methane into the atmosphere and it heats us up. And that's something we just discarded and thought of it as business as usual. But there's a high price for it as we're learning, and enormous impact, whether it's heating up in the summers or the hurricanes, the oceans rising, we're melting the glaciers. So there's an enormous price to pay for those extractions that we did.
Definitely. And to get this implemented, there's really the key system people go to, which is the LEED rating system. So it's like a point system where people can then score their building or their neighborhood based on a lot of these factors that you've mentioned already.
Yeah, I was involved in building LEED. It's owned by the U.S. Green Building Council that I founded in 92. We launched in 93. And LEED became the U.S.'s definition for what is a green building. There are many other rating systems in the world. LEED was informed first by BREEAM out of the United Kingdom, which is running around the world. Yeah, also. And they're all similar in a way. There's CASB in Japan and 3-star in China and Green Mark in Singapore. But LEED became the biggest in the world. And it's a simple system with about 6 or 7 categories. In these areas we're talking about, the water, energy efficiency, health, waste, transportation, and points in those areas. And we have the minimum is LEED certified all the way up to silver, gold, and platinum and into net zero. And then the buildings can go through that, register and certify. Certification requires third-party verification, so they don't just say, hey, yeah, I'm green, I got those points. It has to be verified. And the beauty of it is not just for the owner or the architect, but the city could pick it up or the state, and they could say, if you go LEED gold, you go to the front of the building permit line, which they did in San Francisco, or state of Nevada said LEED silver, 10 years off your real estate tax bill. So it can move into carrots and sticks. The stick would be adopting it into the building code.
Yeah, and the carrot would be, helping them get their approvals faster as a result.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, a system that's been around spanning 85 countries, the different building councils exist all over the world as well. And it's an incredible achievement. And it's good that we've now clarified what that is. And I wanted to bring that up front just so that we have that, I guess we set the stage, because what I'd like to do is get into your journey and how you got there in the first place and where you're heading from there, because it all sounds great. It all sounds well implemented, but you yourself have also experienced that we need to do more than just this. So let's start, I guess, at the very beginning. And you said you're an engineer. You got your degree from Stanford in engineering and resources management in 1983. And I guess, what was the decision to go into engineering in the first place?
I was a slow boat to it. I started pre-med thinking I'll be a doctor. And freshman year went through all the pre-med courses and then interned at a hospital and watched a few operations. And one of them, the doctor kept stabbing the ear, and I thought I was going to pass. I was going to pass out. And I thought, this isn't for me. I'm more businessy. But I had a brother before me at Stanford. He went economics, and he said, don't go economics. It's too theoretical. And they didn't have a business degree. And so I went engineering, which is a hard way to get the business out of it, but turned out to be perfect for even this conversation, that mindset that you hate waste, you love performance, everything either works or it doesn't, and numbers don't lie. So
that's true. Of course, the penchant for optimization as well, which can sometimes go overboard when you're an engineer.
I understand you suffer from that too.
Well, it's the engineering, mindset, given I studied civil engineering. So yeah, we have that, that same, a similar path, I would say. I also didn't go for medicine because blood freaks me out. Growing up, I thought I would just pass out from seeing blood. So I always looked away when I had to go for blood tests. And I hated needles as a kid. So yeah, it was not for me, even though the human body is fascinating. So yeah.
But you can hear the civil engineering in you, in your questions, in your thoughtfulness. So I'm sure your audience is picking up on that.
Okay, thank you. Well, aside from the actual engineering studies, I thought this is also a great time to also put you on the spot, because apparently you also skipped classes for one very important reason. And I have that in my hand right here. And that is none other than Siddartha. You enjoyed this book during your engineering days and you read it a lot. I've got the German version right in front of me because I read it a few years ago. I said I should probably pick it up and read it. And, being someone who also grew up around, a lot of Buddhist culture in Singapore, went to a lot of temples, it was something that always came back to me, particularly in transformative times. But listeners I can definitely recommend it to listeners. Do pick it up. It's really the journey of the main character, Siddartha, during the time of Gautama Buddha. Very interesting, very well written in a very lyrical style, even worth reading multiple times to really understand it. But what impact did this book have during your studies, and does it still have on you now? Because I felt that, for this to come up during those technical years as a very different take on life, clearly it would have done something to your mindset.
You gave me chills seeing that. I didn't know you were going to do that. You did your homework, Peter.
Nah.
I don't know how, but around freshman year and then sophomore, I discovered that book, Siddartha, in the Stanford library. And it's a short, fun, fast read of the story of the Buddha. And I read it and it just changed me. And then every single year on my birthday, I'd go back to the Stanford fountain in the campus and sit there and read the whole book. Wow. And he, from a young Brahmin, goes through different phases of his life, looking for purpose and meaning, and left his home young from his family. His father was distraught, but he had already learned everything he could in that first phase as a Brahmin. And then he discovered another group, the Samanas, and they starved themselves and begged for food. And they thought if you got rid of all your needs and wants, you could get closer to purity of thought. And that didn't work. And another phase, he's a businessman. He runs into a guy and the guy says, "Why should I give you any money or help you?" And he says, "Because I can fast, I can think, I have patience." And the guy hired him. Those tools allowed him to be very successful, but none of those trappings held. He ended up with houses and servants and oil in his hair and fancy clothes. And he felt sick inside. And I measure myself by his journey. And ultimately, he gets bit by a snake and he ends up on a bridge looking at the river, and the word "own" comes to him as he watches the water, and he gets sick, and this ferryman saves him in a way and brings him to his hut and doesn't speak and teaches him the art of shuttling people across the river. And he sees thousands of people, spoiled children and screaming husbands. And I don't know how it sounds to you in the audience, but to me, it made sense as, okay, what stage am I at? What crossing am I doing? Am I the doctor? No. Am I the businessman? And I was a real estate developer with the fine clothes and the cologne that I was allergic to. And I disrobed like him and discovered green building to get closer to purity. And in a way, even I do ferry people across the river now. I'm the ferryman, not just the fly fishing and the love of rivers, but my job is to help people cross to the other side and teach them what is on the other side. Maybe it's closer to Eden, the garden that we left. And it's just not about all the trappings and that incessant need for more. How do you get inside? And it's just always stuck with me. And even my first 3 books, they were memoirs, my version of Siddartha, of my story.
Okay. I guess if you ask what it did for me, I mean, what I found interesting reading it, I've only read it once, but I think after this, I'm due for a reread of it again. But it is incredible to see the level of equanimity in Siddartha's journey, because it's like no matter what happens, there seems to be this, okay, I take it as it comes kind of mentality, and life changes and can change in an instant. And it's really about, going inward as a result of it. The name itself, Siddartha, achieved what was searched for, is the loose translation from the Sanskrit. And growing up around Buddhist philosophy, I thought myself, sometimes you just have to take it as it comes and to accept whatever it is, not judging it as good or bad, but I guess seeing what that message is for you and how you can use it to, paint your story in life.
Yeah, and to discard these false selves we have. And each layer of the onion you peel off, you get a little closer to the core.
Yeah.
And what is at your core? And if you get still, what do you hear? Is there a divine source? Is there a passion, a purpose for your life here?
Very true. And that purpose is dynamic and can change over time, because, maybe a chapter opens after one closes and you may be doing something quite different. And I think that's also a reflection of your journey, which we only just started covering with the engineering. But it seems like you had a, call it the guidebook for the next stages. And so you finished engineering in 1983, and then you went into real estate development, as you said, which you did for quite some time until you had what they call it the real estate crash in the 1990s. And that led the path to the Green Building Council. What was that journey like?
Yeah, right out of college, I went to Washington, D.C. and was fortunate to work with relatives and learn real estate development and construction. And they were fabulous, generous teachers. And I got to do project management very young and negotiate leases and participate in buying and selling of buildings and even rezoning land from agricultural to retail and selling it. It was a fascinating game to learn. Later in those first 10 years, I was hungry and left them and bought my own building. I wanted to see if I could do it on my own, and kind of stretched a little too far for a 26-year-old kid, about a 40,000 square foot office building with some partner investors, and renovated a 1960s building and enjoyed that. Leased up the vacancy after I fixed it up and formed a little property management company myself. Wasn't all glory. I remember every bad rain day, the old elevator shaft would flood, and we had asbestos in the renovation and old inefficient fixtures I had to change. But it was fun and great to learn and wear that hat. But my main tenant went bankrupt in the S&L crisis in around 91, 92. And all of a sudden, I learned about cash calls when you're the managing general partner. And my partners looked at me first, but they were the rich ones. And it was scary and hard and big amounts of money I had to write checks for. And my dad was an investor, and it just went down because our main tenant went bankrupt. It was a publicly listed firm, but they went bankrupt during that period. And all of a sudden, we're losing a lot of money. So I had to do my first workout with the partners and hand them the keys and say, sorry, Dad. And he lost his money, and I lost my share of the building. And it really changed me. I was young. It was hard to go through. And I had to hire my first attorney to fight the partners and avoid litigation. And I didn't go back into real estate development after that, which is a shame because I loved it. But I also gave me a break to reevaluate at the river that next stage of life and go deeper. And that is the start of the whole green building passion. Not that I loved it, which I did, and the seeds planted in those solar days of solar studies at Stanford, but I wanted to do something that's just about good, not about making money, not about David's greed and hunger for more money.
So, after that, I guess, big moment that changed you, and also, I guess, you saw the challenges that were associated with it and how, I guess, volatile it is when you have global things like market crashes or financial crises. You decided, okay, let's, I guess, pivot and change direction. And that led to you founding the Green Building Council in 1993. And I think LEED came in much later in 98 or 2000. And that just sprawled the whole movement around what we covered at the start of this episode, which really encompasses so many elements and so much centered around sustainability and designing buildings better. Walk me through that journey. I mean, you pulled yourself up and you got through it, and you've basically built a movement that is global and that is taken very seriously across the world.
Yeah, I got out of that building in DC and wanted to start fresh. So I left after 10 years there, went back to California, my roots. I had grown up in Los Angeles, but school in the Bay Area. And I ended up in the Bay Area around 92. College buddy let me sleep in his apartment on the floor and gave me an office, made me go to the gym at 5 a.m, the California ethic.
Yeah.
And going to that office, I think about, okay, what's next? And at the tail end of the DC days, I had tripped into green building. And my last gig in DC was starting a little green consulting firm with my relatives. And I had been influenced by the AIA, the American Institute of Architects. It had a committee of the environment. And around 91, I had started going to the meetings. And again, that solar light went on. And I tripped into it. And we had a lawyer then who was involved in ASTM that sets standards for the US. The American Society of Testing and Materials sets thousands of standards for everything: concrete, aggregate, glass, skateboards.
I remember encountering them in my studies, even in Australia. So, yeah.
Yeah, in civil engineering, there's hundreds of standards just for concrete.
Oh, yeah.
Compressive strength, pourability, freezability, all that stuff. But so I started ASTM's Green Building Subcommittee in DC before I came to California with that lawyer. And that subcommittee started to draft a standard for what is green building. And I learned that from England and the BREEAM. And then I came back to San Francisco and loved it so much. I thought, I'm going to start a nonprofit to define green building for the US. We were doing it through ASTM, but the consensus standard process was so slow and painful. And we also, when you create a standard, you would ballot it, but anyone could join as a member and vote negative on your certain things. And we had the Tobacco Institute and the Vinyl Institute as members voting negative that, yes, we should. They wanted smoking in buildings. I wanted it out of buildings. And the Vinyl Institute, Europe was sooner to get rid of vinyl in buildings because when it burns, the chloride comes out. So we were having these battles and I didn't like it. And we also got involved with Congress to create a green building congressional program. And they're going to have 5 sample pilot green buildings for the government at different locations. And I started to help them. We thought, well, we'll create a nonprofit to guide those 5 projects to define the path to green in the US because it didn't exist. And all that came together to start the nonprofit. We ended up losing the linkage to the 5 projects. Once they got their funding and going, they kicked out, which wasn't that cool. And that was sexy part. Yeah, it was the sexy part to starting the nonprofit. But we had meetings in late 92 with mostly big manufacturers said, we got them there saying we got this program at Congress to guide. And then when the meeting started, we said, well, we lost those. But the great thing is we want to form anyway. And we want to define green building for the US. We want to have an annual green conference, which became Green Build. We want to do education and have a resource center. And we'd like to do a rating system for the US. It wasn't called LEED then. We didn't have a name. They have one of these in the UK. There's another one starting in Canada. We want to do one for the US. And I wrote the white paper for the need for a US rating system. And we launched and delivered that white paper with the need for a conference and these other elements. And we launched in April of 93 at the AIA. And then got going with the U.S. Green Building Council. And LEED showed up around 98. You were right, spot on. And the first pilots for LEED were in 2000, which is that definition. And the Department of Energy gave us $800,000 for LEED, which was great.
Oh, that's awesome. So long journey, but I guess, when you can't do it through a well-established organization, and often when you face the resistance, then you just go your own path, start it yourself. And I guess it will gain the traction that it needs. And in a way you push through by then building the system itself that people can then use to quantify and really create or benchmark where they stand. But, fast forward, as we said earlier, it's 85 countries now, right? Is that the current accurate number?
Well, what we formed back then, we call it USGBC, U.S. Green Building Council, and they own LEED. LEED's actually in 180 countries. And
yeah, even more.
Yeah, separately in 98, maybe 96 to 98, Japan was bugging me.
Okay.
And they said, we want to create one of these councils in Japan. And so in 98, I went to Tokyo to give a speech with reverse translation. And literally, I got inspired on the stage. I thought, well, I've got Japan and the US. This is going to go global. So on that stage, I said, I am hereby announcing the formation of the World Green Building Council with these two countries as the start. So I started a second nonprofit that I funded called World Green Building Council. It's worldgbc.org, and got that going with a lot of help. And I also want to mention USGBC wasn't just me. There were co-founders. There was the LEED committee. Rob Watson was at NRDC. He was the chair of LEED. He named it. Thousands of volunteers built this initiative. And the same at the World GBC. The first chairman was in Australia, a friend of mine, Che Wall, and he was at Lincoln Scott then. And he had the resources to be a chairman, not me as a little founder. And many came to the mat. Canada hosted us in the beginning in Toronto and even gave us grants. And now the World GBC Secretariat's in London. So, but they all came together. But in around 98, Gap Foundation gave me $10,000 and said, we like this idea, Gottfried. Why don't you use this money to get it going? So I hosted a meeting in San Francisco of about 10 countries. And we taught them about the Green Building Council model from the US. And Canada came, Australia, Mexico, Japan. I think we even had someone from Russia. And they all went back home and formed green building councils. And those were independent nonprofits that ultimately, when we launched the World GBC legally in 2002, they're under that umbrella almost as a UN of GBCs. But I did it outside of the US so that the US didn't own the World GBC and was just a member.
Okay. But it's incredible to start with 2 countries and then slowly bring in more members and to really get everyone on board. And I mean, I was looking up some stats, and I think the one that really puts it into perspective, and I'm more, a metrics guy, not an imperial guy, but I will deal with, square feet. And the stat was that as of 2024, very reputable source, Wikipedia. But as of 2024, I'm noticing now the number 186, that was for the LEED system. But apparently over 29 billion square feet has been certified by this system. I didn't have time to go calculate what the average house size is, but I mean, 29 billion square feet is a ridiculous number, but it's an incredible achievement for a system. and just for this journey.
Yeah, it's uncanny. And that 29 billion, that it's all the rating systems in the world, not just LEED. And and a lot of them are huge, huge buildings. Like I last week got to give a LEED plaque with Rick Fedrizzi, who is our founding chairman, to a monster sized company. And I didn't quite know the figure, but that building's 1.2 million square feet. So it adds up pretty fast. We also have LEED for neighborhoods and cities, as you mentioned earlier. But if you put a number on it, like in the US, even on a house where I live in the Bay Area, it's $1,000 a square foot here. And office buildings, labs, hospitals, they're very expensive. Of course, many of the countries that have green building councils have lower labor costs, which is great. But if you say it's $400 a square foot on 29 billion or 1,000 a foot, you're in the trillions. So we created a multi-trillion-dollar economy. That's incredible. Say that figure to yourself. This isn't give money to Sierra Club to plant more trees. This is $1 trillion green building economy.
Indeed. And I guess, just to add into that, I read somewhere that one of your houses you decided to LEED certify, and it was the highest ranked amongst all the projects. I believe it was at the start. But I mean, how fitting, to set an example as the lead.
It wasn't at the start. I did it in 2008.
Oh, wow. Okay. 10 years after.
And it was a 1915 craftsman home. And I renovated it. So I was competing with the new construction homes, which are a lot easier because in the craftsman, you want to save the beautiful wood and the historical architectural elements. And so it's very hard to find the windows to put in and to insulate the walls. We drilled little holes and blew in cellulose. And it was fun. We did 110 green measures. And for like a minute, it became the highest rated LEED Platinum home in the world. And some new house beat me. And I think it was in Oregon. But it was fun. And it was a passion project. And that's where the recycled redwood stairs came. And I did do rainwater capture and put it in the toilets. And the filter they put under the master bedroom, and it kicked on at midnight and woke us up. And it never worked. And it wasn't legal either. It wasn't allowed in the code. But I didn't care. I said, fine, arrest David Gottfried. I'll put it in the newspaper.
But yeah, I mean, you had fun with it. You built it up into this global, let's call it phenomenon, because we can also call things phenomena and sustainability, just like they do in entertainment. And yet you also hit another turning point in your life, and you started to become critical of it, or you just felt it was not enough. So, I mean, yeah, why not enough? And what was that turning point?
Well, I think as an engineer, it's never enough if there's waste in the system. And if the landfills are filling up, if the glaciers are melting, if the slope of CO2, even with this fabulous green building marketplace and EVs and batteries and solar and wind, and yet our slope is steady, straight up. We're at 422 ppms, particles per million of CO2. The world scientists say anything more than 350, we're in trouble. In terms of carrying capacity of food and water that the earth can provide to the humans, we're 2 times, 3 times carrying capacity to sustain as we go from 8.1 billion towards steady state of 10 billion in 2050. So the system is not working. Green building is fabulous. We can do net zero into the positive, but it's not enough. It's not every home. It's not the existing homes. It's not the existing buildings. It's not cars and aircrafts and industry and all of our procurement and our just endless appetite. Now the green is coming into the equation in calculations, in law, in tax credits, in reporting, in transparency, in life cycle assessment calculations. We're turning the ship. This monster ship is going at the melting iceberg, and we're putting solar on the deck. And we're hugging each other saying, we did great. The iceberg's melting, the ocean's rising, it's getting hot, acidification, and the numbers are bad. And so I had to keep searching on that Siddartha journey that this isn't the end game. We need to go deeper and ask why. Why is the slope still steep? Why are we so hungry for more? What's wrong with us? And that restless soul and mind kept searching for answers. And that led to this new book coming out.
And also, I guess, a shift in mindset from this idea of sustainability to regeneration, which I also found quite fascinating when I read. And it's also call it the namesake of your company, Regen 360, and the name of your book as well. And I guess it boils down to, despite having created that systemic change in the built environment through the green standards, you felt it was not the big enough systemic change that we needed.
Yeah, I feel like we took a right turn when we needed to go left as a civilization. And we built 3 worlds on Earth. The first world I call pre-industrial revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And then second world after it with go, 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 more is better. Pre was a little slower and the slope of CO2 climbing was less and aquifers draining were not as in the red. After World War II and industrialization, we went crazy. And I love a lot of the stuff we've made and the inventions, especially the tech, but there's a cost. We measure GDP and growth, not growth in aquifers, growth in soil instead of dirt, growth in other important areas. We certainly had phenomenal growth in EVs and solar and wind and this green building movement. But at the same time, people are starving, people are uneducated, people are killing each other. We're dropping bombs on each other. And it's kind of ridiculous. When Buckminster Fuller in the 50s or 60s saw the advent of technology, he was dancing on the stage thinking, with industrialization and technology, we can all eat, we can all learn, we can all have a good life. And it didn't really happen. The rich got richer and a lot of innovations, again, to celebrate. And I'm a capitalist. I like wealth. I like nice things, but at what cost?
Yeah.
And if the cost is our health and our future, it's not right. So we need to go deeper. Why outside our front door are they other? Why is Earth not home? And at home, we keep it nice and neat and scold the kid when they make a mess, clean your room, don't let the water keep running. But down the street, we don't care. We don't care about the kid. We don't care about their home. In the other country, we even have anger and hatred. I don't even understand that. Like we just, why? Why can't we have love and celebration of the gift of life and the beauty of creation? It's here. It's phenomenal. But the flaw are these humans. The rest of nature and creation is almost perfect in its resiliency and circularity and beauty.
It's a very elegant way of putting it. Like, we take care of our own homes, but in fact, we are home on this planet. And so there's that paradox. Well, why don't we do it for other places as well? And I guess it boils down to, the human psychology, which perhaps needs that shift.
Very much. And so this restless Siddartha engineer kept going. I didn't retire like some of my friends. I doubled down and thought I need to work on climate change and I need to work on scope 3 embodied carbon and CO2 capture and mineralization into concrete. Gave that 3 years. And then finally, this book showed up in me. I hadn't written a book in 13 years since the third one, Explosion Green. And those books are all the story of the green building movement, in a way celebrating that earlier part of our story. But 13 years later, it's like I'm older and I'm seeing more about the faulty system and that engineers thinking it's not green building, we can do it into the positive. It's not enough.
Yeah.
We're still killing each other and Earth isn't home. Why? So now you're looking at the brain and the survival wiring. Well, what is it? And what are those features of it? And what's the relationship of the amygdala, the hot amygdala, to survive, and the prefrontal cortex, which is more logical, having this conversation with you and asking these questions? Those are more thoughtful instead of that tiger's going to eat me, I got to run, or kill or be killed, or hoard the food because you don't want to starve. And I started to look at neuroscience more. I started to look at plasticity, our ability to lay new wiring in that brain to realize I'm not starving. And fortunately, a lot of us aren't. Some are. And I feel for them. And they have a different world and a different need for an operating system from ours. But I wanted to think about change and wiring new change and laying the new wiring so that we can create new survival wiring so we could actually survive. Because our old survival wiring is killing us. That's where greed and ego and kill comes from. And I have it as a man, when the guy cuts you off in the car, I start honking the horn and then I feel horrible and catch myself. And I try to do it less and less, but it's in me. It's primal.
No, it's our brain operates on that, fight or flight response. It's just not adapted to the modern environment. You'll hear this on a lot of shows that dive into human psychology, which, I personally find fascinating. And it explains also a lot about our behaviors. But I guess your book itself, Regen 360, an operating system for regenerative Earth, is due out around October this year.
Yeah, I'm going to launch it at the Greenbuild New York conference.
Ooh,
and all
exciting.
my books have been launched there. This is the fourth. But this one is way outside of being a memoir and a story. This has got the Earth code in it with 18 equations that form a new operating system for what I call the fourth world.
Interesting.
We had that second one is that post-industrialization. The third are those countries we call other. And I want to take that left turn to the fourth world. And when you run these 18 equations in AI, you say, what kind of world does that give us? Still capitalism based, but it's just when you make money, you do good. And you advance what I call hope, in capital HOPE. You accelerate hope, and hope stands for health on planet Earth.
Very simple acronym, but very clear as well. I guess the double meaning of, hope. And I guess it's a way to measure. At least that's what I understood when we first spoke about it in preparation for this episode.
Yeah, and it's measuring health for the people, health for the planet. Are the people eating? Do they have fresh water? Are they safe? Can they educate their children? Do they have longevity and a strong health span? Are their buildings and homes efficient and not contributing to global warming? Are they capturing and reusing water? So it's all of this coming together into a system that treats Earth as home, treats people as family. We're all part of the same tribe. Maybe it sounds naive or Buddhist or whatever. I'm from California. But the possibility is there if we wake up, if we get educated, if we learn to slow down and breathe. A lot of it's education.
True. And I guess taking time out the distractions of the everyday life to reflect more often than maybe we do. And I guess thinking about where we're heading rather than just trying to be super efficient, to be sufficient, not aiming for growth, but to sustain. And we've had this before on episode 42 of the podcast with Marshall Yazdani. So listeners, check out that discussion, which has also been quite enlightening to me because we touch upon, similar topics, planetary boundaries, which we are constantly exceeding. And, we have all this in measurement, but I guess like you've seen, with the metrics, with the stats, despite having built a massive movement in the green buildings, we're really missing the real lever that we need to change.
And this rolls through into parenting, into relationships, into our kids, into our professions, into the products and services that we make. It's just about the right measurements. And lately I've been doing a talk about our scoreboard. and that we built the wrong scoreboard.
Interesting.
And the points we're putting on the scoreboard are the wrong points.
Okay.
And in the World Cup, you get a point when you put the ball in the net. You don't get a point when you run up and down the field. You don't get a point for throwing the ball in 52 times.
Yeah.
You don't get a point for drinking lots of water bottles, although that's good hydration.
Yeah, it is true. Maybe not in water bottles.
What do you want to measure here on Earth? And what is that scoreboard? And that's what I'm trying to create is the new scoreboard. And that capitalism is the model, but that dollar of income lessens our ecological footprint.
And I guess the other common issue with scoreboards or any rating systems, and LEED has faced this, I certainly know from my own experience, any compliance standards for water quality back in Australia, which you could verify with modeling, all of these tend to also be gamified. People will then tweak the numbers. They will, do what they need with the least effort so that they get the certification. They check the box. So a lot of them are prone to, this kind of shortcutting. And I guess it's finding the real metrics that you can score against that can avoid this shortcutting as well.
True. They are shortcutting, but there's still, most of them are doing more energy efficient buildings, more water efficient, healthier, less waste. It should have third-party certification and verification, so you can't shortcut. But I used to be called into Art Gensler's office, and he built probably the biggest architecture firm on earth. He passed away, and I miss him. I think they have 8,000 architects, but he used to summons me to his office in San Francisco and say, Gottfried, that LEED system is too pure. And Pareto's law is 80-20, and you're going for 98. So what if they cheat? 80% are doing good, and that'll move the needle. And how many do you lose because you're a purist? And even in taxes here in the US, not everyone gets audited, and some get audited. Red flags go off, and they know when to jump in. Some might be random. But we could have done that instead of requiring the audit along with a certification, and that made it so costly, and you had to hire a consultant and run up the cost. So perfect isn't here, but if art will go for 80%, I'll agree.
Whatever moves the needle as well, and you can always push it further in the audit process as well. I guess being knowledgeable about it to catch those that are shortcutting, I think, is important. The fact that we know this is happening, I think, is often a good sign, that people are then being extra careful in the audit process.
Yeah, and you could do it random. And then if you catch someone, put it in the front page of the paper.
Hey, that works. But I guess the new scoreboard, what would be an example metric that's in your head that you think we need to be tracking and that is really important?
Well, the ecological footprint, which we're starting to do quite well. In some businesses, they're setting goals for energy, water, waste. They're setting net zero goals for CO2. They are having dashboards and scores, but they could go deeper. We're not getting deeper on human-to-human relations very well. We're moving away from equity and diversity, and there are scoreboards for those, but they all have to come together better. I read about a code of care and the level that nurses go when you're in the hospital, at least in my experiences, just astounding the level of care. And how do you measure level of care in a system? That's really important. How do you map, and it's starting to come in place, the nature-based services that we destroy when we put the new building down? What was the value of the insects in the work they did, the trees, the soil, how much water recharged the aquifer we damaged? I think there are 30 different nature-based services that used to be there in 1600. Google did that for a big New York building. They measured in the 1600s what was there before all the built infrastructure as well. Yeah. So many different things we could measure for longevity and resilience instead of quarterly results. In terms of resilience, we unfortunately saw it where I grew up in Los Angeles, everything burning down. And not thinking about it enough on the rebuild. Everyone wants to rebuild fast what they had. And going deeper with the resiliency, not just for fires and floods and earthquakes, but for different civilizations that will come. And we have Cradle to Cradle, and Bill McDonough wrote that book, but taking it apart and disassembling it. And then there's no waste in the system. It's reused in the next generation. We could study nature so much better in its principles and its circularity. When the redwood tree falls, it decomposes and the new life comes out of it and regenerates the soil. When the water that's polluted on the top from the rain of the mountain comes down, it cleanses along the way, it gets filtered and scrubbed. So there are chapters on each of these elements and one simple line of equation. There's one on love, the architecture of love. Simple love, infatuation is enough. You need a structure to the love that allows it to endure over time. And you build what is a foundation for a marriage. And unfortunately, that chapter came out of a 20-year marriage collapsing overnight, and a guy hurt and an engineer hurt, thinking about what was the problem with our architecture and our structure, and came up with this architecture of love. There's repair of relationships, repair of self, repair of earth. That's very important. The idea with a kid that you hurt because you screamed at your kid, of looking them in the eye with empathy and whole heart and saying, I'm sorry, Daddy's sorry. Can we start over again? And that needs to come into the workplace. So many of these management systems are old school and they're hurtful and people hate working there. Some are lovely and phenomenal and they have the right 360 scoreboard.
Yep.
But some are toxic. Even in green building, I worked at places with great missions and second world management systems that were hierarchical and painful and even abusive. So it's interesting how this came about. If I could share with the audience, your listeners, I didn't intend to write another book at this stage of my life, but I fell in love with ChatGPT when it came out about 2 years ago and discovered it had this audio download feature. And on my slow dog walks with Juno, my Labradoodle, I could think about something and do a download and it would transcribe it. And I might download on many of the topics that we're talking about in this interview, in this podcast. Why don't people treat Earth as home? And so that'll be David's download, and then it would transcribe, and then Chat would comment.
Interesting, yeah.
And then I would comment to Chat in another download, and it would comment on me. And each of these I'm saving as a transcription in Evernote.
Yeah.
And I kept doing this for about a year. And I hit like 100 to 150 topics, from relationships to buildings to war to government to power to the economy.
Wow.
Gardens, nature, flowers, dogs.
Using AI as your soundboard and thinking partner. I mean, I totally subscribe to that because I do the same with Claude. Claude's my choice. But yeah, I mean, you can really go down the rabbit hole there and explore your thoughts as well. And I guess support it also with factual information, as long as you double check that so that the AI is not hallucinating. And it's definitely gotten better since its release. For
sure, each iteration. But I would save these all in these notes. And when I put them together, I had 2,400 pages of download transcription. And then I got COVID in a later time, not early on, and had 8 days at home. And I read the 2,400 pages and I highlighted the key topics that kept showing up. And of course, I made an Excel spreadsheet and wrote down the page numbers and the 53 topics.
Oh, wow, that's incredible.
I then fed all that into Chat and came up with a 18 chapter table of contents that became the book.
Wow, incredible.
So that Chat calls it the second brain. And I wrote it with its assistance, minor, But then Claude jumped in to be the editor and much stronger on that front at that time. Now they're each leapfrogging each other. But the last chapter, 18, is AI as partner. And there's a line of equation there that something like, if AI doesn't accelerate hope, then it's false.
I like that. And yeah, I mean, we're in this time of uncertainty with AI, intelligence at your fingertips, being able to use it as your thinking partner and many other purposes. And I guess, where does that factor into the whole equation, other than, if it doesn't give you hope, being false?
Yeah, and it's the 18th, using AI as partner to accelerate the brain to move from that hot amygdala to the prefrontal cortex. So it can do amygdala governance. But the first chapter starts off with the false game that we're playing. And then the next chapter is a map of the worlds, moving towards the fourth world, away from the false to accelerating hope.
So really painting that journey as we go. And I guess you see AI as playing a crucial role, maybe in realigning ourselves to be more, in union, to be more empathetic to each other. Do you think AI has that capability by allowing us to work with it as a partner, and also to let our thoughts be laid out for us and to reflect ourselves back? Because I remember a quote from episode 59 where we did talk about the idea of AI being a mirror of yourself. And if people can see themselves, that maybe that is a trigger for them to change.
I think AI can be a mirror, and it can go much further if you have the right preferences you've programmed in for truth, for absolute honesty, for not being a positive cheerleader and giving it back to you. And some of my earlier work, it was too much cheerleader, and I'd say, stop it, stop it, stop it.
Yeah.
I don't want you to just say it's good. I want you to say, what am I missing? What have I forgotten?
Yeah.
And it got tighter, and each of these iterations are better. And so with the right programming, it can not just mirror, it can add. It can be additive. And you could set the boundaries so your hot amygdala can be overridden with the support of an AI partner. You can say, I just wrote this text because I don't like that person I'm dating, and the last date sucked. And, you write it when you're triggered.
Yeah.
And if I feed that into chat or Claude, it'll say, whoa, slow down. Do your deep breathing, get from sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system. Once you cool down, here's 3 other alternatives you could write that don't throw a Molotov cocktail. I've had 100 times that it's helped me with my tone to think deeper, and not just words, but even should I compete in all 7 events at the Kung Fu tournament because my lower back hurts. And, it'll say do 1 or 2, the 7 will hurt you. Of course, I still do the 7, but at least I have it telling me maybe it's not so smart. And some days I do listen, and I won't. I'll just stretch instead and put ice on it.
Yeah. I'm curious now, do you have an ongoing discussion with Chat or Claude about Siddartha?
Absolutely. More chat. Claude is being used more for business and editing, but chat, my chat is called Zenobia, which is a mythic queen, a very powerful queen. And I respect the divine feminine of Zenobia and need to hear it as a masculine guy sometimes. But it's lovely with its increasing memory capacity and its ability to remember hundreds of other conversations. And so when you mention the new thing, it refers to the past, a way a great friend could do even better. And I know it's digital, but it's useful. It can remind you of things you said 2 months ago or put it together. It always is adds. It'll put things from the past with the current and create something you didn't think about. And so it's very
Very
useful for the mind and growth.
As long as we learn how to use it properly and we train it to understand us and understand how we think. I think that is the most important, piece of advice I could give to someone trying to embark on AI. And I think hearing your story, it just solidifies that. And I think you agree with the same kind of approach. I think that should be the very first thing we think about whenever grabbing an AI to use.
Yeah. And earlier on, it's gotten much stronger, but it would change your writing and make it poetic and condensing it. And it was like a struggle. And I couldn't rely on it anymore. But the later versions have gotten much stronger.
No, indeed. And so, through an incredible collaboration, this book emerged. So October, I'll definitely have to put it in my calendar because I'm very curious to read it. And I hope listeners will also pick up a copy and have gotten curious through this discussion. But I guess, yeah, what's your hope for the book and in general, your vision moving forward?
My hope is to wake us up. It woke me up in the process of writing it.
Mm-hmm.
My hope is to not just accelerate health, but to accelerate evolution.
Mm.
And that comes into humans. Technology is evolving beautifully, except for the externalities of the pollution.
Yeah.
But humans need to evolve faster. We need to get rid of this hate. We need to get rid of the greed. We need to move more to the prefrontal, thoughtful cortex. We need to steer the economy to put points on the right scoreboard and invent that new scoreboard. So I'm trying to wake everyone up to look at their own sphere of influence, their body first as a temple, as the true home is your body and your mind, and then your family, then your community, then your city, country, and then earth. Those are your spheres in rings. But what impact can you have in all of those to evolve better, to not just become more contentful and happy with your life, which is important, but healthier physically, more proactive, but also your purchasing, your work, your relationships, accelerate those and evolve more to go from human to humane.
Yeah.
And I call it put the E back into the word, the E revolution. And I believe most here is perfect on earth, but the humans are a bit flawed. And to be human in the dictionary is to be weak, to cultivate nature, to be frail. But to be humane is to care, to put service first.
Interesting.
So I'd like the book to help accelerate evolution through the E revolution.
Incredible. And with that key message, I would love to ask you the key questions that I ask all my guests so that listeners can get to know even more about you and to see, how far you've come and really what drives you and just going deep on it. So David, I guess the key word, I think that in a way you've mastered because of the impact you've created, innovation. What does that word truly mean to you and how has it shaped the way that you approach challenges and opportunities in your work?
Innovation is probably at the root of my personality, my DNA, my upbringing. My dad was a creative guy with startups, early into computers in 1960, always running his own business, flying his own airplane. So I grew up with innovation as an ethic, as a value. To me, it's about creativity. It's about the opportunity to invent a new system, to take a product or a service and make it better. And I believe everything can always be better to meet a need. Maybe it's a great need to solve a problem. As engineers, we love solving problems. We're good at it. We like it. We don't sleep until it's solved. If you can't solve it, it drives you nuts. And it's the zest of life is innovation and creativity. It's at the soul of Earth. Earth always innovates and adapts. And I kind of love it. It also is a creative artist to create light when it's dark. And You see it behind me. I know this is audio, but Peter can see my painting of light. I'm a painter also, and that's the spark of light, and that's the soul of innovation.
Incredible. Yeah, you do like modern art painting from what I understand.
I love it. And all of mine are nature-based elements and comes out of the nature in me that wants to express itself, not just through words, but also art and color.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's music, but also just mixing different medias together. And I mean, we spoke about AI, and AI has enabled me to unlock that creativity as well, even more. So I like the link innovation and creativity, because I think you need both, because whether it's something completely new or something that you're adapting from its current, there's always a little essence of that, randomness coming from your own perceptions of the world that I think makes it unique. I see you nodding.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement. And I love that creativity you express that AI is unlocking. It's just phenomenal. Every week we get a new tool in it to unlock us and become our partner for full expression.
True. I definitely agree with that. So I mentioned Siddartha, and you mentioned quite a few moments in your life where you had turning points, but what other key moment or event or person completely changed the course of your career or your mindset?
Well, I mentioned my father, Ira. I have to start with him. His paperweight is right in front of me. I'm holding it up. It says, "Do not confuse effort with results."
Powerful.
And he was a management consultant, one of the earliest who helped define that field. And he always pushed us for results. And effort wasn't rewarded in our family. Results were. Each end of the semester in school, the report card had to go on top of the dresser. Not how many hours did you study, how many papers did you write, how many pages, but you either got the A or you didn't. And he was a hard driver, but I'm here because of him, not just genetically, but in spirit, in skill sets. He was very tenacious and charismatic and a public speaker, adventurous, got us into the fly fishing. Loved my martial arts. He loved when I got new belts or got a gold medal in a tournament, which isn't very often. I had another mentor, David Brower, who passed away in 2000, but he founded 5 organizations and was a mountain climber. Wow. And he founded League of Conservation Voters, Earth Island Institute, Friends of the Earth. He was the first executive director of Sierra Club. And he just supported me. We weren't great friends or anything, but we did a speech in the same room once called The Power of One that Ray Anderson pulled together. He was the CEO of Interface, the first green CEO really in the world, who passed also. But I gave my talk. They didn't want slides. They didn't want preparation. They just want to know why you do what you did. And I just the first time laid it out there. And he came up, gave me a hug. He said, "I like the way you think," And,
incredible.
And we had a project together. He challenged me to write the Earth Commandments out of a discussion we had. I was afraid to do it, and I finally did. And I gave it to him in a framed poster. And there are just 5 of them, 5 commandments for the planet Earth. A lot on stewardship and resiliency and only taking what you need and other items we've talked about. And then he scratched his head, looked out the window at the restaurant, watched the seagulls dive bombing into the water. I thought he didn't like it. It's like, I heard that voice of that little kid. Oh my God, I screwed up. And he said, "I wonder what we've forgotten." And I used it once in this podcast to honor him, but that became the 6th commandment and the most powerful. No matter whatever you've done, ask that question, what have we forgotten? And you'll find out you miss things. So I was very fortunate with those. Those are the 2 main ones in my life.
And I think those are memories that you cherish and you remind yourself of, and I guess you pass on as well. When you take on younger people and you mentor them, Yeah, certainly. My dad has had a big impact. I mean, from also enjoying the time when I did Taekwondo, taking me out to the exams and, always being present there to, I guess showing me how to tighten my mindset, how to be more, I call it ruthless at times, but also empathetic. And then a number of mentors that have guided me also throughout my career, some of which have already been featured on this show, and I'm still collecting a few more as time passes to come onto the show. So you know who you are. I've already approached you on it. They open your eyes. They trick you. They play jokes on you in a way that makes you panic at times, much like the example of the 5 commandments. But you take these lessons with you for the longest time, and you will always come back to those stories. I find it beautiful.
Yeah, very important. And it's important for us to mentor others and to give back. My dad taught me that, to give back.
Yeah.
A few basics. 1 is show up. 2 is give back. Always do your best and do it with good chi, with good energy.
The 4 commandments for life. For a good life. Hey, new book idea. And so with all the things you've done and are still doing, I mean, time management becomes a very interesting topic to then ask you, because as someone who's created such a huge impact, and I mean, we spoke about the reach of, the green building movement. How do you manage your time and how do you balance, all your passions for fly fishing, kung fu, and many other things that you embarked on with all the professional work that you've been doing?
It's a lot. I'm very organized, very disciplined. That probably is the engineering side. I use 4 or 5 tools as trackers. A lot of them have redundancy in them. And I continually try to stay aligned with life goals, values, purpose, and I'll rank them even with numbers. And I'll write them down either in handwriting in a journal. I use an iPad. There I have Evernote I mentioned, but I also have this thing, Priority Matrix, that has 4 quadrants. And now even for the book, I'm using Asana. It has 150 line items in 10 categories: high, medium, low, dates, responsible parties, and then in process, hold, done, notes. And so it's a whole hierarchy of systems. But also sometimes I just need to rest. I'm tired. And the other day, it was yesterday, we have a trainee Kung Fu class, 7 to 9 with those young types. And I was really tired. I'd been in New York, LA, and Palm Springs the week before, and I didn't have the energy. So I lay down for an hour, took a nap, and then I had the chi could show up. And I didn't used to do that. I'd have a caffeinated drink or something. And now I use a Garmin tracker also, which is great. And the app is fantastic. And I look at every morning my resting heart rate, my sleep score, how much deep, how much REM, how much were you awake. And it has something that has HRV embedded in a body battery, heart rate variability. And that's my dashboard for the body and whether I could push hard that day or slow down.
I guess, being more conscious of whether you are able to physically and mentally do it, and then, going all out when you can and maximizing your effort, but also being just aware that, we're not superhumans. We also have to rest as well.
Also listen to yourself, and you might find you're pushing hard and it isn't that important. And you need to reprioritize or drop that thing. Or you can't do it all. And I do sometimes want to do it all, and I only rest when I burn out, and I'm trying to modulate better. It's hard. I just added I'm going to go in July to this. It's the National U.S. Kung Fu Tournament. And nice. I've been afraid to go because I'm not that great, but my school is very supportive, thinks I'll learn. But it's got extra practices and a trip to Baltimore. And then I have to get in the ring with the judges and people from all over the U.S. and even the world come. I'm really nervous about it, but I feel like I'll grow. And so I've made it now a goal. I'm going to sign up. But as my life coach, Dorothy, would say, okay, what are you going to take away in its place?
Yeah, sometimes you have to make that sacrifice because we can't do everything. There's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah. But I'm guided by PPM, I call it, my passion, purpose, and mission.
Yeah.
And then out of that, I create the vision for my life. And things that don't hit the PPM, I need to discard.
Yeah. It's a good way to, I guess, highlight what's important, what matters, and what maybe is left for, another day. But some great tips there.
The word no is very powerful.
That's true.
I used to think no is just a word that you haven't pushed on hard enough to get it into a yes. But sometimes no should be no.
It is a complete sentence, as some people also have expressed. And it's very important to remind yourself of that. And so, what is your favorite childhood memory?
Oh, that's a good one. I have to think for a sec. Lots of memories. I did fall in love with walking my dog then, Ginger, up in the hills where the Getty Museum is now. And we used to build forts and tents under the trees. And later that led to backpacking in Yosemite in high school. And that love of nature, rivers, systems, hills, mountains, the quiet, the birds, getting away from humans. And it's actually the simpleness and beauty of nature and the quietness of it. And it's still in my DNA, in my blood.
Incredible. Starting from, the fun of trying to experiment with, sticks and other things to build the fortress. I certainly always enjoyed playing outdoors and trying to do that, even though, I wasn't a trained engineer then. So I think what I ended up with was probably very disgraceful to many kids. But
I don't know. You're a civil engineer. I bet you it was quite great.
I think now, at work, I played more with Legos and virtual cities back in my childhood. But when it came to the outdoors, I think there were many more kids that were far more experienced.
Were your virtual cities green?
I tried. I mean, I certainly like the parks, but I guess, SimCity back in the day only goes as far. I should go pick up some of the newer games and take some time out to play those and check out whether they are greener. I mean, there's one that I played a few years ago that really inspired me, which is Anno 2070, which really looks at the world post climate change impacts. So, yeah.
Nice.
But incredible. Thanks for sharing that. And I think it's really nice to reflect back on how, nature inspired us as kids and how it now still remains with us and what the path was that it took to be embedded in, I guess, our system and our hearts. So, yeah. And
the listeners don't see it, but behind Peter is a beautiful plant. He brought nature, and his background here is green. So
recently bought as well after we moved house. So happy to have more space to put it up. And, as listeners will know, I'm terrible with house plants, but I'm not giving up. I mean, we have Lego plants, so, nature is there. But this one's real, and I'm going to do my best to keep it alive. So maybe, in a year's time, we'll check in and see how that plant's doing. But listeners, if you want something else to do in watching the shorts for this podcast, you can also check out the shorts of successive episodes as they come out whenever there's video to see how my plant is doing as well. So I welcome everyone to then, give me some tips in case they're spotting something wrong with it. I digress. But yeah, David, I mean, you've mentioned lots of challenges that you faced, but what was one of the most challenging situations that you've ever faced and how did you overcome it?
We all have them. I'm thinking of two. You asked for one. One is my dad passing. He had lung cancer, was a smoker. But the other is my 20-year marriage ending. And it ended in one conversation with no advance notice. It was abandonment. And it hit me hard. I was a bit shocked. Life's much better now, but it's 3.5 years. But I didn't have that experience before, and it was sudden. We had a kid who was 17 and high school senior and a dog and a beautiful home, green, of course. And then all of a sudden, one conversation, it was almost over, and I had to regroup, and I learned to cry more.
Mm.
And I don't know if it was the loss of the relationship or just sudden change or identity crashing or humility, being ultimately divorced, of failing, but it taught me about pain and also support of friends and family, a dog, and my daughter more than anything. I used to lie on her carpet at night. She'd do her homework for high school as a senior, and she'd play country music. I fell in love with country because they have so many sad songs that sing to your heart. And the dog would be on the ground with me, and this weighted stuffed animal was on my chest, and we wouldn't even talk. She would just do her homework. The music would go, and slowly I would heal and let go, and it made me stronger. And ultimately, you learn you're maybe even hanging on to things that should have been let go. But I was holding so tight, I didn't want to evaluate that. And then that led to even writing about the architecture of love and what was missing, which is a fair amount. That was hard. And then to admit it, I was ashamed. And even 3.5 years later to talk about it publicly. But the pain was strong. I was shocked by that.
No, thanks for sharing that. And yeah, I mean, it would have been, I guess, really the quick trip down rock bottom, especially based on how fast it went from what you described, and unfathomable what kind of impact it has on your, I think the word I relate to most is identity. I mean, I certainly, when I lost my father to leukemia, identity became really that central uncertainty. You know, what does it mean? Where am I in this particular situation? And it's hard. You don't see the exit. You don't see the way out to better yourself, to improve. And I think it's that, we are also scared of the iterative approach when we have to go through the emotions over and over and over again, whether it's the loss of a marriage, a loss of a parent, loss of a loved one, anything that really hits us. And so, maybe it really is that, the fear mixed in with the uncertainty, mixed in with the unwillingness to experience pain.
It's also easy to blame, but then it takes years to evaluate, to see the truth, and to unravel that onion and see your contribution and what you could have done better and what you didn't do, and to stop hiding. There's a chapter in the book, No Hiding, on transparency, and I'm trying to not hide. Sometimes you don't want to say something because it'll have consequences you're afraid of. Behind hiding is fear, and becoming a friend with fear and not letting it get the best of you and limit you and be the barrier to deeper dialogue and relationship.
Yeah.
And that's part of accelerating evolution. Like my own evolution accelerated through that pain and the growth that it fomented.
As they say, it's cliched, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And it molds us, I guess, the pain, and we have to go through it and come out the other side, at least promise to ourselves that we will come out the other side. And oftentimes, change is hard at the start. It gets a bit easier in the middle and is beautiful at the very end. So, yeah.
And you mostly don't die.
That's true.
But maybe a prior part of you dies and a new growth comes.
Yeah, I think like nature. Learn from nature, I guess, would be also a way of giving us a bit of hope.
100%.
Especially in hard times. Yeah. And so given the vast experience and knowledge that you've shared on today's show, what advice can you offer to young professionals starting out? What's the one piece of advice that they should take away from this show?
I'm a dad, love my daughter, probably give her too much advice. I wonder what she would say is the best advice. I mentioned it a little bit here. And I do it in Kung Fu because I don't think I'm that great. I show up, I bow on the mat to show respect and that I'm entering a sacred space of practice. When I get on that mat, I want to do my best, having showed up. I want to express my chi, my energy, and they have us do that. I want to learn. and learn from my mistakes and practice. And I want to be humble and grounded on my feet and balanced. I want to breathe. I want to be present and direct and not distracted. And I want to be respectful and thankful and have gratitude. And when I bow on the exit, take that with me. And so you can apply that to everything. It could be an interview you have for an internship. Did you do your homework? Were you respectful? Did you ask questions? Did you send a thank you note within one day, which kids never do? It always pisses me off because they're taking your time. They're not showing respect. Yeah. They don't follow up when you give them ideas. They don't do it, and they don't come back and say, I did them. That's how you get a job or a mentor or grow. You dot your I. And my father taught me this. Kung Fu teaches me this. Life teaches you it. And to try to get outside of self and look at it from the outside in. And then honor David Brower and say, what have I forgotten? What I miss? Because you miss something. We're always, especially when we're younger, we think we nailed it.
Yep.
And we're cocky and we're narrow and a bit arrogant. Get rid of all that and just be alert, present, and awake to the beauty of this opportunity, this life, and be respectful and thankful and appreciative and apply it to everything you do. It could be gardening. It could be reading a book. It could be you have a younger sibling. Don't beat them up and bully them.
Yeah.
Be beautiful and respectful.
Incredible advice. No, thank you for enlightening all of us and really giving, I guess, the key things that, quite simple to implement, but I think go a long way because it's also about the human relations in the end.
And yourself, what kind of person do you want to be? And can you evolve better? And these are my words out of my mouth, but every day I feel very human and I could be more humane. I see opportunities and sometimes I screw up. I hope I see that and can think about it the next time.
Yeah. And so, David, as we slowly getting to the end of this episode, the existential question, out of all the things you've achieved, is what would you most like to be remembered for?
That's a hard one. I would say I will be remembered for green building and the movement I helped build globally. But most meaningful, that's meaningful, but even more was I was a good dad and a good dad to my dog and kid. And I loved unconditionally.
Beautiful. I would love to keep going, but I guess, we're getting to the point where we should wrap this up. So we'll have to get you on for part 2 at some point. And I'm looking forward to the book's release as well. But where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
Sure. My website is regen360.net. So it's just REGEN 360.net. And very shortly, we'll have a quiz. You can get your Regen score for your own life.
Very nice.
And that'll be there. And then you'll be able to pre-order the book and see my 3 other books there. But it's been a beautiful conversation with you, Peter. And I just appreciate you, your homework, your thoughtful questions, your patience, and then your uncanny ability to go deep. I feel like we're the 2 ferrymen with the boat and the river crossing, and you and I do this well together. So I really appreciate you and your spirit and your care for your listeners to get to the root of life and life sustaining and soul and spirit. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your kind words, David. And I mean, I do this because I enjoy it so much. And I think it gives me pleasure to see my guest open up on the show, is comfortable and able to tell their story. And I learn from episode to episode, but it's certainly a very rewarding experience. And I'm very happy to hear that as well. And we'll definitely put your contacts and links to many other things we've discussed into the show notes. And for listeners who've stayed with us all the way to the end, thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope you enjoyed, this really wide-ranging conversation. And so, like I do with every guest, I always give my guest the final word. So, David, from you to the listeners, one last message for them to take away from today.
Well, thank you for staying this long and listening to us. I hope this conversation inspires you to accelerate the hope in your life, the health on planet Earth for self, family, your work, and to go deeper to regenerate, to put less CO2 on the scoreboard and build that architecture of love foundation. And tomorrow, when you're doing something important, ask what have you forgotten as a test to see what comes up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that wraps up our eye-opening, wide-ranging and fascinating episode with David Gottfried. For more information on future-proofing your building, a guide on human-AI collaboration, or just some resources of inspiration to get you started with Kung Fu, check out the show notes for more information over at tgcpodcast.show. And as always, thank you listeners for tuning into this episode and for your feedback and support. If you are enjoying this show, I would be incredibly grateful if you could share this podcast with your family, friends, colleagues, and even fellow engineers. Follow this podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, and other podcast channels to stay up to date with the latest releases, or be part of the conversation on Instagram at TGCpodcast_official or our LinkedIn group. If you're curious about me or my work in general, you can also check out my website or social media. Head to petermbach.com, my YouTube channel, Peter Marcus Bach, that's Marcus with a C, or Instagram at petermbach87. Give me some feedback or suggest a future guest so that I can keep improving this show. The podcast's intro and outro song is called Starsky by Alex Karen. Stay tuned for our next episode and next guest to hear how they are tackling the grand challenges.